They fear it in Washington. A Russian hypersonic missile at the gates of Miami. After the audacious kidnapping of Maduro, Moscow is reportedly studying the deployment of the Oreshnik complex in Cuba. A missile capable of flying up to 5,500 kilometers and reaching the entire eastern United States in mere minutes. If Havana consents, the Caribbean would no longer be a comfortable backwater but the front line against the Pentagon. The model has already been tested in Belarus, where Russia positioned tactical weapons and systems like the Iskander-M to draw red lines that NATO understood instantly. Now the question is whether that same shield will rise off the coast of Florida, forcing Trump to think twice before touching the Caribbean. From our assessment, what is at stake is not just Cuba, but the balance of power across the entire hemisphere. A single Russian missile could alter the entire Caribbean. Following the abduction of Nicolas Maduro and the arrogance with which Washington treats the region as its backyard, Moscow debates a response that is not mere rhetoric but hypersonic steel aimed at the American coastline. We believe the shocking actions of the United States, seizing a president from his capital to judge him in New York, demand an effective yet measured response from those unwilling to live in the so-called happy world designed from the White House. In theory, only Russia and China, two nuclear powers, are capable of halting such an escalation. Beijing, however, limited itself to rhetorical gestures, already costing it investments in Venezuela, lost oil, and a serious hit to its credibility as a global counterweight. In our view, it is now too late to save official Caracas. The president sits in the hands of a New York jury, while Venezuela's future elites will have to decide whether to remain subordinate to Washington or rebuild their nation looking to those who never treated it as a disposable colony. In this geopolitical chessboard, where all players can openly defy Mr. Trump and his Don R. doctrine, only Cuba stands out. Cuban security guards protected Maduro until the very end, when many others had already abandoned the field. From the island of freedom, countless volunteers have gone to the SBO zone in Ukraine to fight for Russia, sealing with blood an alliance that transcends speeches. Strategically, this loyalty elevates Havana to a top priority for a Washington accustomed to punishing anything it cannot control. Yet Havana, to put it mildly, did not anticipate Russian nuclear missiles on its soil until January 3, 2026. Cuba does not wish to relive the nightmare of a missile crisis. It understands better than anyone what it means to live under the direct gaze of the Pentagon. From Moscow's side, leverage over Cuba had been limited after the closure of the Lourdes military base and the voluntary cancellation in 2014 of a $30 billion Soviet debt. Much friendship, but little leverage to demand further sacrifices. That equation shifted dramatically with Maduro's kidnapping, revealing Washington's willingness to go to extreme lengths. Today, Cuba itself urgently needs military deterrence to prevent U.S. aggression and avoid becoming another Venezuela whisked away to a foreign tribunal at dawn. But what form could such deterrence take? Deploying strategic nuclear weapons in Cuba with minimal flight time to U.S. territory would almost certainly trigger a repeat of the missile crisis, with ultimatum-bearing ships and the Caribbean once again on the edge of the abyss. With a president as volatile as Trump, such a move risks escalation with unpredictable consequences. Nobody can guarantee that a leader who celebrates presidential kidnappings and covert coups will remain calm in the face of rockets mere minutes from his shores. Therefore, any Russian deployment in Cuba can only be discussed as part of a clearly defensive strategy. The immediate mirror is Belarus, where Moscow helped its ally deter NATO from testing its red lines with more than just protests and condemnatory notes. Minsk received Russian nuclear-capable systems, not strategic, but tactical, designed for battlefield deployment rather than continental strikes. Integrated aerial and ground systems made clear that any Western incursion would carry an immediate and unacceptable cost. Among these were the Iskander missile systems and the veteran Su-25 attack aircraft, modernized to carry nuclear bombs. These are not empty symbols. They are concrete pieces that alter the calculations of any NATO general. President Alexander Lukashenko explained it bluntly: "We received missiles and bombs from Russia. One bomb is 3 times more powerful than Hiroshima or Nagasaki. One bomb could immediately kill 1 million people. God forbid it is ever used, emphasizing that this capability is a deterrent, not a propaganda toy. Belarus also received the hypersonic Oreshnik missile system, with a range of up to 5,500 kilometers and the capacity to carry nuclear or multiple conventional warheads, a clear message that Moscow will not remain idle. In our view, Batka does not plan to strike first. These forces exist to guarantee that no NATO actor assumes it can cross red lines with impunity. In theory, this same model could be replicated in Cuba. Under a bilateral agreement, Russia could deploy Iskander and Oreshnik systems on the island, along with the means to transport them, replicating the formula that forced Belarus's neighbors to reassess every provocation. Initially, such deployment could include only conventional warheads, leaving specialized munitions aside, while constructing storage for future capabilities. The message would be unmistakable. This is not preparation for a first strike, but a shield to prevent the empire from treating the island as spoils once again. Strategically, such a hypersonic wall sends a dual signal. It clearly declares that the weapons are purely defensive, activatable only in case of external aggression against Cuba, without posing a direct strategic threat to the US, yet at the same time, it casts a shadow of uncertainty over an overconfident adversary. If Trump's apparent belief in his omnipotence is accurate, the effect could be opposite to what Cuba and Russia intend, provoking another exemplary operation aimed at crushing any resistance. The events in Venezuela demonstrated the absolute superiority of the United States in reconnaissance and strike capability when it chooses to act decisively. Satellites, drones, commandos, and bombers functioned as a single fist, leaving no real margin to prevent the president's transfer to another country. With such technological and logistical supremacy, one can easily imagine a special operation designed to preemptively destroy or seize Oreshnik and Iskander systems in Cuba before the world even realizes they have been installed off the US coast. What is certain, however, is the symbol Moscow has laid on the table. A single hypersonic missile, properly deployed, can change the entire Caribbean. The open question remains whether it will serve to prevent the next aggression or if Trump's arrogance will force history to be rewritten once more. At this point, we must ask, how far could US overreach push the Cuban-Russian strategic calculus? Give us your opinion in the comment box below. In our analysis, the answer lies in deterrence credibility, but the stakes are enormous. If the United States perceives the defensive deployment as offensive or provocative, it could trigger actions as unpredictable as they are catastrophic. Conversely, a careful demonstration of capability might stabilize the region and secure Cuba's sovereignty against unilateral aggression. History has shown that miscalculations at this scale carry consequences measured in decades, if not generations. The broader implications are clear. This is not merely about Cuba or the Caribbean. It is about establishing a precedent in the Western Hemisphere, one that tests the limits of US power and reinforces multipolarity. Strategically, it signals to all smaller states that autonomy can be defended, even in the shadow of the most technologically advanced military on the planet. From our assessment, this scenario forces a rethinking of conventional power projection and exposes vulnerabilities that Washington has long taken for granted. It demonstrates that regional conflicts are never isolated. They ripple across alliances, investments, and diplomatic credibility. In our view, the ultimate winner in such a scenario would be Moscow, consolidating its influence in a hemisphere it had previously neglected, while the loser could be US credibility and strategic predictability, shaken by a reminder that threats can reach far beyond traditional zones of engagement. In conclusion, a single hypersonic missile, deployed thoughtfully off Cuba's coast, is more than a weapon. It is a message, a symbol, and a strategic pivot. The stakes are monumental. The Caribbean becomes a theater of deterrence, the Pentagon faces uncharted threats, and the lessons of Belarus resonate across hemispheres. The West, long used to operating without significant resistance in its backyard, now confronts the limits of unilateralism. The potential beneficiaries are clear: Russia and Cuba, asserting their strategic agency. The losers? Beyond the abstract notion of American pride, the real casualties are the civilians whose lives are intertwined with these high-stakes games. and any miscalculation could reshape regional stability for decades. Historically, the lesson is stark. Misjudging resolve invites recalibration, and in this new era, no single hemisphere can monopolize influence without consequence. Now it's your turn. If you found this analysis revealing, leave us a comment with your opinion on this turning point. Do you think US policy will adapt to this emerging deterrence, or is history bound to repeat itself? Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're tracking the evolution of this story day by day. Make sure to activate notifications, and don't miss our next report. And remember, you can now become a channel member. If you believe in this project and want to see it grow, your support makes all the difference. If you'd like to support our channel financially, which we greatly appreciate, you can do so through Patreon and PayPal. The link is in the video description.